Do you think corruption exists only in Africa? Corruption exists everywhere in the world, and let me shock you. There are some aspects of corruption that is even more abroad and in developed countries than in Africa. But why is our continent still backward? Now, let me answer that question. Before I answer that question, let's start first with what corruption is. So basically, we can define corruption as the abuse of power for personal gains, and it has so many methods, different methods, a lot of them, but I'm gonna talk about just a few. Why am I taking my time to explain this? Is because I have a bigger picture to tell you guys about corruption and why Africa and why our continent is still backward, despite the fact that other countries out of the world are still corrupt, but they are developing. But with Africa, we stay backward, and many people think that the problem is only corruption. We have a lot of problems. Corruption is also one of them, but I just want to change your mindset so that you see another side of the picture. So basically, we have different types of corruption, such as nepotism, fraud, embezzlement, money laundering, and bribery. So basically, all these forms of corruption do exist, and corruption now is being categorized into other subcategories. That each of these is gotten from a main category. So I'm going to explain now all the different categories and why I made the statement that everywhere is corrupt, the whole world is corrupt, and to shock you guys, there is even more scale of setting corruption abroad than in our continent. But other big countries, all the big nations we know, they do progress and they do live a better life than us back home, and the reasons why. That's why I'm taking my time to explain all of this. So the first group of these corrupt practices involve direct exchange, known as transaction. For example, this is where bribery comes in, and we all know that bribery is when you pay someone money for a service because you don't want to pay. Like for example, you will give 500 francs in the road or you give money to a police officer because you don't want him to check your documents. That's bribery. So we all know what bribery is. I believe we all know what bribery is. Then we also have another kind we call kickbacks. This is the one we call washing in Cameroon. That's basically because you helped someone to have a service, or you helped someone to have a business contract, or you gave an information to someone to have a business contract, and now that person has an obligation to meet you and give you some money. In our local parlance, we call it washing. It's also corruption, but many people don't know that. They feel like it's normal. The last one we have is extortion. That's a situation where people overprice things, or they overplace value on something that is not the real value. It's theft, it's corruption. You don't need to overplace. For example, I could say this pen is normally sold for let's say 100 francs or $1, right? And now you, as a business person selling this or providing a service, you now demand $10 to citizens to get this pen. It's known as extortion. It's not business. That's corruption. That's what many people don't know about corruption. And now I will describe the other parts, then I will teach you why there is corruption in Africa, and it's affecting our economy so badly, in such a way that many of our people are poor, and in the other parts of the world there is still corruption, just that maybe the rate is low and the different forms of corruption varies. Extortion is more in Africa than in the developed world. Transaction between two people for extortion, bribery is more in Africa than the developed world. We also have embezzlement that is more in Africa than the developed world. What this kind of corruption does is they bring stagnation to the economy. How? Let me explain how. Now, basically, if we receive bribe a lot, that our police officers are out there receiving a lot of bribes. Now, how does this affect the economy? What happens to the economy is your taxpayers' money doesn't go to the government. All the money that the government is supposed to be generating gets reduced by citizens. Now the citizens take this money and put it in their pocket. Now how can government provide you with social amenities, with good healthcare? Because the government also works on money. Money is like a fuel to the economy. The more money your government has, the richer the country become, and the better the well-being of the citizens. So basically what this kind of corruption does, this transaction corruption, I told you, bribery, extortion, kickbacks, washing, and all those things, right? It helps to erode down the economy, to water down the economy. So what that kind of corruption does is it helps to water down the economy in such a way that we cannot progress for a long period of time, because money that you're giving the police officer is supposed to be given to the government, and the government is supposed to use this money to provide good roads, good schools, good water, good electricity, defense, and all those things. But you're giving it to the police officer and you're enriching the police officer, and what others will say is when you give that money to the police officer, it goes back to the economy, right? It goes back to the economy, but at the same time the police officer is making money, but the economy is not making money. And what helps to make your life better in an economy is when the money that you give to the government gives it back to the individuals through better services like good water, good roads, electricity, and defense. Why is the government providing such services? The government is providing such services to make equality. Like we complain in Cameroon, les grandes ambitions, rich people get richer, poor people get poorer. On a road, there is no rich man and poor man on a road, because when the government gives you that road will help to trigger more development in the economy. It will help to make more businesses to open. Now, if you're a local farmer, for example, you have to go to your farm and you want to harvest, for example, something like tomato to go to the market and sell, and you have very bad roads. You all agree with me that before that tomato leaves the farm to the market, most of them will get bad. There will be a problem. Maybe due to bad road, you will press the tomato and you will squeeze, and most of them will get spoiled before reaching the market. So that's one of the effects of why you should stop corruption. You are enriching the police officer, but at the same time the state is not making any money from it. I understand that our system back home is already corrupt and it's like something that is spoiled, so many people will prefer to give that money to the police officer and not to give it to the government. People willingly do that. That is why the rates of corruption keeps skyrocketing. And in every society, the truth is, in every society, the government enforces the law. The citizens are always radical. Even in the US, all developed countries, the government purpose is to enforce the law. Citizens are always there to be radical. It's like a speed ticket in America. If you run past a certain speed, you see a policeman immediately behind your car asking you for a bill to pay a ticket that you have violated the law. You understand? That is the government's role, to ensure that the law, ensure that people are being held accountable when they disobey the law. So it's not like every country citizens are very kind and very nice. Citizens tend to follow a particular pattern after many years of enforcement. That's what people in this recent age call the metrics. In America, they say the metrics is rules and systems that have been put in place for people to follow continuously. So when people start obeying the law, it's an economic thing that happens. When the government enforce a strong law and people now obey that law, it becomes a systematic thing that over generations to come, they will learn to know that you don't have to overspeed. So to conclude on all what I've said, remember that the origin of this video started with talking about CONAC. Like I was saying, CONAC is in Cameroon to fight this corruption. They have to fight and enforce the law. It's not like they are developing a ministry that is like what can I say, a literature ministry that is on the text, but people don't work, they don't do anything, they don't enforce the law. CONAC is supposed to be there to actively enforce that law and force the people with a lot of work so that the people accept the law and stop corruption. They have to be on the field investigating police officers not to take bribes. That's what I'm talking about. So basically, CONAC is not working anything. They are doing nothing. Nothing. If you ask me, they are doing nothing. If I was the president, I would dissolve that organization and start a new one. Sack everybody who is working under that ministry and rebuild a new one with people who have integrity and care about the well-being of the nation. Do CONAC a lot, and basically they do nothing. There is also public works that are supposed to be investigated and are supposed to make sure that the quality of, for example, if they give a road that needs to be built, the quality needs to match the standard of what the contractor promised to give. You understand? There is a lot of work to be done about politicians that embezzle money. A lot of investigations need to be done about those who are embezzling money, and also making workers who work in the public sector understand that they need to be accountable to the citizens. They should provide yearly report, monthly report, quarterly reports. So what is our government doing? I pray that whatever is supposed to happen now, our country will be better for the good, and it will move forward. And all these things I'm talking about will be applicable to the economy. I wish, my dream is to see all what I'm talking about be applicable to the economy. In case they need financial advice, I know there are a lot of bigger economists in Cameroon that can provide better financial advice than me. What I'm just saying, what I'm doing, and all this long video I've been making is driven out of passion and the love for my nation.